Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers, Boomer Zoomers. Connecting through Zoom is the way to go. So let's dive right in. It's Boomer Zoomers.
All right, folks, so we're going to close out our show today with one of our favorite bi-monthly segments. Once again, we're back live at the Charlestown Senior Center with our favorite Boomer Zoomers. And today, Bill Isabella, our regular contributor, introduce your guest today.
My immediate left is a lovely Peggy Blaney.
Hello.
The
And to
lovely
left-
Peggy, welcome.
And to the left of her is a not so lovely Jeff Combs.
Yeah, well, at least Jeff is wearing the cap. Jeff, thanks.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Now, I understand that your group discussed at a recent meeting a news report that was out there. I'll play it in the background, but I want you guys to describe it and tell us why you think it's important for our viewers.
Let me jump in on that, Mike. The two videos you're referring to had to do with the recent Taunton issue where drag queens were invited into a library, and we took that as a mistake simply because parents were bringing their 6-year-old children and 9-year-old children to view this, and the focus of the story was the several men that came in and disrupted the meeting. That you can see them there in the black mask and so forth. But they came in to disrupt the meeting, and they were appalled that these men actually came in and disrupted it. Shouldn't a parent, and this is Amelia with 3 children, she brought her 3 children in, shouldn't the focus should have been on what are you doing to your children? Are you allowing them to be indoctrinated by this group? Now, granted, these guys that came in a little bit of a thuggery attitude, maybe shouldn't have done what they did, but the attention should be on the parenting, and that's what we want to talk about today.
You know, as I looked at those reports, Peggy, they never showed the drag queens, and they never questioned whether it was appropriate for a mom to be bringing young children to something so risque or perverted, depending on how you want to look at it. Your thoughts, Peggy?
Well, first of all, Stan, I have 6 children. And so going back to when first of all, going back to my history, I was a 10-year-old girl right after Pearl Harbor. I knew that you honored the flag, you said your prayers, you obeyed the teachers, you obeyed the police, you thought the firemen were wonderful. I tried to teach my children that. And so this whole business, I've been talking with my grandkids about this, and something that I realized is when I had children, you made them proud of who they were. If you had a little boy at 2 years old that wanted to wear his sister's dress, you said, oh, no, you're a little boy. Little dresses are for sissy boys. Let me see your muscles. Let's dress you as Superman. So this was the attitude of parents. The idea of bringing a toddler to a drag queen, I don't think that's entertainment. I think that's indoctrination.
Very good.
And I'm very disturbed by that. We've always said to the kids, be proud of who you are. The boys I had 4 sons. They had to work out. If they were upset about their physique, you said, what can you do about it? How can you get better? I'm very confused. And so also these 2 gentlemen on either side of me, they're kids compared to me. They're young guys. I grew up in a different time in history. And so I'm very upset about my children, not so much my children. I'm going to have 22 great-grandchildren by May. The last 2 babies will be born. I don't want my kids exposed to this kind of stuff. I want parents to say, you know, the whole thing about a boy, you're here to protect your sister. You've got to be tough. You've got to be strong. A little girl, you're going to grow up someday and be a mommy. This is where I come from.
Yeah, I know. Well, me too. And Jeff, some people would call those wholesome values that Peggy just talked about, would call those old fashioned and out of date. But I think I and probably most of you would call what parents are doing with their kids with this drag queen, would call that grooming kids for something that's unhealthy or could lead. Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. It clearly it's grooming. And I look at it from a law enforcement aspect also, having been a police officer for over 20 years. These children are being exposed to something that could be illegal, depending on the laws they have in Massachusetts and any town ordinance that they have. For instance, you wouldn't take a child to a place where they serve liquor. You wouldn't put a child in that environment. You can't take them to a pornographic movie. Some of these drag queen shows, if you've seen some of the videos, Mike, particularly a couple coming out of Texas, Plano, Texas is one, but I think Austin's another one. They're absolutely filthy and obscene, and these children are being exposed to this. So there's a legal question in here, and should their version of DCYF in Massachusetts be involved in investigating these situations? And then on top of that, where are the religious? Where's the religious community in all of this? Where are the pastors of the churches protesting?
Well, in one of the news stories, there was a woman pastor who was condemning the protesters and basically tacitly endorsing the drag queens. You're right on that. You're absolutely right, Jeff. Bill, Isabella, two things. First, your group talked about this issue at a recent meeting. So I want you to give me a general, if the whole group was aligned with what we just heard from you three, or whether there was any disagreement. And then B, beyond what Jeff brought up about a legal question, even bigger than that, I think it's a moral question, and that's the struggle in our society today, right? Traditional American values versus these new woke values. That's the struggle right now, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. Let me relate to the last piece of your question first. Traditional, how about it's just simply the right thing to do? How about it's the right thing to do to simply be respectful of one another, to be respectful of someone who is different than you? How about respect for the law? How about respect for so many things that we no longer respect? We see crime today. We see people going into stores with bags and just clearing the shelves and walking out the door. Police can't chase them in Chicago because they're told not to. Onlookers do nothing. We just had a weather reporter from Fox News in New York City beat up by 7 or 8 minors, kids under 17 years old, beat up because he tried to stop them from lighting another man's hair on fire. I mean, what are we doing here? So this goes beyond school. It goes beyond government. This is at the heart of the family unit. And we are no longer teaching our children the differences between right and wrong and the good old golden rule. So you can believe in whatever you want to believe in, that's fine. But do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's at the heart of all this. We're not seeing that taking place today. We're seeing just the opposite of it. Do whatever you want to do, and there are no consequences. And that begins in infancy in the home.
They, whoever wants to weigh in, the plan of the left here, and has been for decades now, is to take abnormal activities, or like we just saw with the drag queen, and to try to normalize that. So when you see a report that doesn't even flinch and doesn't even bat an eyelash at the fact that parents are bringing young kids to these, what I would think are, a lot of people think are perverted activities, that's the media's way of trying to normalize and precondition us. Not only are they grooming the kids, but they're grooming us to try to accept this stuff. Peggy, what do you think of that?
I get very worried for my grandchildren because it seems to be that it depends on where they either went to school, college, or where they're living now. I've got grandkids living out towards California. They're brought up, they're learning things differently than what I learned. And also, my feeling, as I said, when you're a little child during World War II, you learn to pray really hard because my dad was drafted. You learn to respect the flag. because you've got all these people that you know and love that are in the service. You listen to people that tell you what's right and wrong. Everybody in my age bracket, I think, believes those things. And I also wonder, after 9/11, did we also have a lot of people that believed then in their country? They were very supportive of everyone. I'm frightened. I was telling Bill that I have grandchildren. One of them lives in California. I wouldn't dare talk to him about politics because his brother bought me a book on Donald Trump as a Christmas present. His sister sort of laughs at me because she thinks I'm old and kind of senile. So the thing is, this is what, you know, and what I try to do is I try to tell all of my kids what I believe in. All right, the business about us getting thrown out of the senior center and stuff. And so I share that with them. I don't want any comments, but you share, hoping that they're learning something from your life experience.
Exactly.
But yeah, what the schools are doing are overwhelming what you as a grandparent or even their parents can often teach them. Jeff, it's, you know, the schools are pushing this stuff, right?
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah, definitely with the CRT and, you know, all the other transgender questions that they're trying to bring into these curriculums. You know, our local citizen in South Kingstown, Nicole Solis, had to fight that battle to try and get the town to release the curriculum, and there was a fiasco over that I'm still sure hasn't been entirely settled. But there is an indoctrination program going into the school. I mean, Ron DeSantis is getting legislation proposed to cease that being taught in Florida schools, and we need more politicians like him to lead the way.
Well, you've got the Marxist mantra, which is the state for everything and everything for the state. And if the Marxists have their way, they'd be raising your children for you. They just need you to procreate until they figure out a way to produce another citizen for themselves. But that's just simply what it is. So we've got the indoctrination of the children, but what I think is more in danger right now is the indoctrination, and you brought it up a moment ago, Mike, the indoctrination of the parent.
Of the whole public, yeah.
Yeah, it just blows me away. What is acceptable behavior today? What is acceptable? Have we become that immoral a society? Do we no longer respect anything because we can get away with it? Simply getting away with it is okay. Some of this stuff, for obvious reasons, doesn't make sense, but a lot of it should be, and we should be as a society up in arms against it, and we're not, and that's what bothers me the most.
Yeah, and I think the common denominator here is the attack on the nuclear family,
Right.
with two biological parents being at home and raising the children. That's almost a rarity.
I agree. But can I jump in here?
Sure.
You guys a little bit, maybe just a little bit older than me, but I'm a boomer too. Nuclear family, that's like a new, has that always been a term, or is that like a newfangled term? Because nobody wants to say traditional family unit.
Well, in my sociology course back in the 1970s, I remember being that a term that sociologists used to study the various cultures.
You know what? I don't like the term. It sounds very sterile. I did look up the definitions of it. Nuclear family refers to the immediate family, the parents and their kid. Boom.
Right.
A traditional family, and I'm not talking about traditional family values. A traditional family, they offered, deals to the extended family, aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents. So I really don't like the term. I'm not picking on you, Jeff. I'm just saying, I hate that term, nuclear family. I like traditional family. What do you guys think?
They agree. I like traditional family because I think the nuclear family might blow up.
Very good, Peggy.
All right, Bill.
Yeah,
Bill, we got time for one more comment from everybody. What do you want to, what topic issue related to this you want to bring up? We got about 3 minutes left.
I think it's very important for you to continue visiting our group, because I think we bring to your show and to anybody watching a great deal of knowledge, and knowledge that is not necessarily sort anymore. So thank you for doing that. Thank you.
All right, Peggy, anything? I
Yeah.
mean,
I
look, you
agree
know,
with
look, before, Peggy, hold on one second. So comment on what I said earlier. You guys certainly represent a very wholesome, yes, you could call it old fashioned, traditional, but way of thinking, but it worked. All right. We were a united, much more united country back then. Just like Peggy alluded to, young people today want to look at you guys, want to look at me and said, oh, you're outdated, you're square, you're senile. That's not the way we should be thinking today. Wow. I mean, it's there's such polar opposites. Peggy, how do we resolve your wisdom with today's rash pop culture?
Well, one of the things Bill has told us to do is share our feelings, but don't get into an argument. Something that I've said, I also see with my grandkids, abortion is sort of accepted, all right? I have a great granddaughter that was born, I think 7 weeks preemie. I held her the day after she was born. I say to all these people, do that. Because if you hold one of those little babies and you see how perfect they are, it's awesome. And so you believe in the creation of this human being. So that's my, just, I keep sharing. I share whatever I can with my kids and hope that, maybe they'll look someday and say, gee, Grams was right.
What a great story. Jeff Koons, you get the final word to wrap up everything we talked about today.
Hope I can live up to it. Well, I think all of us here have seen in maybe the last 50 years, we've lived through those years and we've seen the decline of families. Going back to the 60s and 70s, I remember Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, where the father and the mother ran the household, kept the children in line. And then we got to All in the Family, and then dad became a joke and mom was a dingbat, and everybody laughed, but they continued laughing through the 80s and 90s, and all of a sudden that seems to have we've lost that value in the traditional family, running a tight ship, keeping the children in line. I mean, look, I was a Boy Scout, I became an Eagle Scout, so not only did I get it in the household, I got it outside of the household, and played Little League, and the coach said, it's not how you, whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And all those values now are turned on their head in the last 50 years. And we're losing our society as a result.
Yeah, and I think what we're all saying is times, they're changing, but I don't know that we're necessarily changing for the better. This drag queen story hour you brought up, all the other things, the acceptance of murdering babies, in my view. I know other people have a different view, but it's times are changing, and we are a divided nation. That's all I can say. I mean, you just look at it, right?
Right.
Changing views and values, more divisiveness in our community. I mean, I think it was obvious, but people fail to make that connection on it. So Bill Isabella, thank you again for organizing your group. Peggy Blaney, thanks for joining us today. Jeff Koons, you've been a wealth of knowledge again, and we will look forward to seeing you guys on our next edition of Boomer Zoomers from the Charlestown Senior Center. I see Martha back there and some of my other old friends. Hi to everybody. We'll see you guys soon.
Okay, Mike,
Thank you,
take
Mike.
care.
Bye now.
All right, and we thank you, our audience, for tuning in today. I hope you enjoy our bi-monthly visit down to the Charlestown Senior Center. And I thank you for tuning in today in Ocean State Current. For In the Dugout, Mike Stennis out. See you next game.